You heard Klausy McSchwab's first two records.
Vaccines back, all right. You'll own nothing and be happy.
But this one is gonna make your modified mRNA tingle. Time Lies presents Greatest Schwabs, Volume 15. A New World Order in Music.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All the unvaccinated are still alive. A little bit of Pfizer in my arm. A little bit of BioNTech does no harm. A little Johnson Johnson does the trick. A little AstraZeneca so you don't get sick. It's booster number 5. Let's talk about Vax, baby. Let's talk about Doc Fauci. Let's talk about all the weird and countless side effects, maybe. Let's talk about Vax. Let's talk about Vax a little. Come and take the 7th shot, the 7th shot. With a little luck you get my, oh! Myocarditis. You won't have to be rich. With CBDC, you'll have all you need with central currency. We just take your extra wealth and your cash. And you can walk 500 steps, but not a single step more until the curfew activates and robot cops stand at your door. Just a small town boy drinking genetically modified soy. This ensures he doesn't procreate. Please stop breeding.
Stop the breeding.
We are almost 9 billion people. Please stop breeding right now. We didn't start a Pfizer. We just made you take it even if you hate it.
Greatest Schwabs, Volume 15. Now available on Spotify and MRN Apple Music.
I don't care who you are, where you're from. Don't care what you want. You will eat the bugs.
Has what I need. I ordered Willy magazine.
The new Willy means fun and Schwerble.
Well, I certainly hope you like that little song. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen across our beautiful country of Canada, our friends around the world in the known and unknown universe. Welcome to the Angry Canadian on Saturday, the 21st day of October 2023. Man, I just turned off the TV. I was watching a bit of CBC News. Are they ever beating the drums for Trudeau and Israel? I mean, the Israel lobby is what scares the shit out of politicians in North America. I say North America because that includes U.S. They are scared shitless. Why is that? I wonder. But the fact is that Israel, those Israelis, let's separate people from what's going on. The Israeli slaughtered was horrific. I can't imagine what people go through in a situation like that. But on the whole, the Palestinians have been suffering for decades, and the West, meaning United States, where was Canada? Where was the UK? Where were the countries that could have persuaded Israel into that two-state solution? Absent. They were just absent. They didn't give a shit about Palestinians. Probably half the people that hear Hamas and Palestine don't even know where the hell it is. So I get some more videos together just this morning about stuff that is happening outside of our political propaganda circle. So stay tuned. Thank you.
What do we know about the Al Ahli Arab Hospital massacre. Al Jazeera has verified a timeline of events of how news of this massacre unfolded across social media. On Tuesday, 17th October at around 6:59 p.m., a massive explosion ripped through the Al Ahli Arab Hospital in Gaza. This video, filmed from outside the hospital, captures the first sounds of ordnance whirring through the air and the subsequent explosions. Almost immediately, multiple eyewitnesses take to social media to describe the scenes of a massacre with hundreds of bodies scattered in the aftermath. Many images are too graphic to broadcast. At 8:23 p.m., the Israeli Prime Minister's social media advisor, Hanania Naftali, celebrated the bombing by saying Israeli Air Force struck a Hamas terrorist base inside a hospital in Gaza. A multiple number of terrorists are dead. He then deleted the tweet. The Israeli army were quick to deny having anything to do with the attack on the hospital and tweeted, "The Palestinian Islamic Jihad terrorist organization is responsible for the failed shooting that hit the hospital." Along with the tweet, they posted CCTV footage reportedly confirming rockets being launched by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. One glaring problem with the footage they shared was the timestamp. The CCTV feed displays a timestamp of 7:59 p.m., which was approximately 1 hour after the impact. The IDF then edited the tweet and removed the attached footage. Other Israeli army-affiliated accounts also began circulating footage which was later debunked and confirmed to be from August 2022. Another Twitter account claimed to be an Al Jazeera journalist at Farida Khan, saying, "I saw with my own eyes it was Hamas, Ayash 250 rocket." This account was then deactivated after it proved to be fake. The Al Jazeera network acted swiftly, releasing this statement on X, formerly known as Twitter. This account has no ties to Al Jazeera, its views, or content. So, what other evidence is there of the explosion? The Israeli army claims footage on Al Jazeera proves the explosion at Al Ahli Arab Hospital was due to a failed rocket launch by Palestinian Islamic Jihad. After analyzing the footage, we can see a rocket being intercepted and breaking apart in midair. Two more explosions follow. The first can be seen in the distance, followed by a second, much larger explosion at Al Ahli Arab Hospital. This was the moment hundreds were killed. Al Jazeera's digital investigation team has dedicated a detailed investigation into the matter. Independent military and weapons experts are still reviewing social media footage and eyewitness accounts. The Israeli army still refuses to let international journalists or independent bodies such as the ICC from entering Gaza to act as independent investigators. The claims and counterclaims continue, and across social media, unverified and misleading assertions have become part of a wider narrative. Much of it confusing and inaccurate, but all of it aimed at assigning blame without the facts to back it up.
Son, nothing else in the world smells like that. I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Right.
On the 17th of October 2023, hundreds of Palestinians were killed when the Al Ahli Arab Hospital in Gaza was bombed. Officials in Gaza blame the blast on an Israeli airstrike. The Israeli army denies responsibility and claims the attack was due to a failed rocket launch by the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. They say they used Al Jazeera footage to allegedly confirm these claims.
But you're asking me for proof? You don't need to get proof from me. All you need to do is switch over to Al Jazeera, who broadcasted it live, and you can actually see. I got a screen caption just for you to see. This is Al Jazeera from last night.
Our digital investigations team, SANAD, decided to investigate these claims and conducted an in-depth analysis of this Al Jazeera video, along with several other videos from multiple sources, and established a detailed second-by-second timeline of the events. By analysing Al Jazeera's live stream starting at 1845, the team was able to identify 4 Israeli airstrikes on Gaza, targeting the area near the hospital, starting at 1854-28, then 1855-03, then 1857-42, and then 1858-04. That's military time for just before 7 p.m. local. The team cross-referenced this video with another, captured by a camera situated south of Tel Aviv, showing a wide view of the Gaza Strip. That video shows a series of rocket launches from Gaza. That video clearly shows how the Iron Dome intercepted these rockets. Going back to the Al Jazeera live feed at 1859-35, we can see a single rocket launched from Gaza. This is the rocket in question. This rocket can also be seen on the Israeli video. 15 seconds later, Al Jazeera's live feed shows that the same rocket was intercepted at exactly 18:59:50. This interception has the same afterglow seen in previous interceptions. A closer look at the video captured by the Al Jazeera live feed shows the rocket being completely destroyed and broken apart in the sky. According to all feeds and videos analysed, this rocket was intercepted and was the last one launched from Gaza before the bombing of the hospital. 5 seconds after that interception, an explosion in Gaza can be seen, followed 2 seconds later by a much larger explosion. This is the strike that hit Al-Ahli Arab Hospital. As a result, Al Jazeera Digital Investigations Team found no grounds to the Israeli army claim that the strike on the Al-Ahli Arab Hospital in Gaza was caused by a failed rocket launch.
First, let me begin by being absolutely clear. Canada, unequivocally and in the strongest possible terms, condemns these terrorist attacks perpetrated by Hamas. We stand with Israel and reaffirm our support for Israel's right to defend itself in accordance with international law.
Violence toward the civilian population is never acceptable.
Glorification of death and violence and terror has no place anywhere, including, especially, here in Canada. So let me be very clear. Hamas terrorists aren't a resistance. They're not freedom fighters. They are terrorists. And no one in Canada should be supporting them, much less celebrating them.
Right. We are talking about yet another example of humanity's capacity to dive into moral voids and into abysses of inhumanity. Just when we thought we had done our worst, we surprise ourselves with a capacity to do even worse. The emphasis here must be on the word we. It is very natural. I'm not going to take partisan sides here. It's very natural when we have vicious conflicts like the one in Israel-Palestine, for us to have a natural tendency to take sides. But the scale, the breadth, and the long-lasting nature of this tragedy, it's been going on for decades, should concentrate our minds, and we should start talking about our collective responsibility for what is going on. Now, some of you may have heard that recently, when I was in Berlin with some of you, in an interview, I refused to condemn Hamas. And as you can imagine, quite naturally, that stirred up just a torrent of criticism, of abuse. There is no doubt that if I were one of those visitors in the music festival near the fence separating Gaza from Israel, by the way, it's not a border. Let's not make this mistake. It's not a border. It is a fence. It's not an international border. And the people who've been living on the other side, the Palestinians, were not always living there. They were living on this side until they were expelled from their homes to be living in that patch of land called Gaza. I close the parenthesis here. Nevertheless, if we were, some of us, in one of those music festivals, one of which was dedicated to peace, and the Gaza militants arrived, I have no doubt they would have gunned me down. There's no doubt that they would have even maybe taken me hostage. Those scenes are atrocious. There can be no justification, and there can be no, absolutely no way of presenting it as justified. But I am not going to condemn the Hamas assault on Israel. Those who want me and you and others to condemn Hamas killing spree are insisting that we, for whom every loss of a human being, every severed limb, every blinded eye, every broken finger is a tragedy for which we consider even ourselves to be responsible. They want us effectively to take the side of the state of Israel. That I shall never do, speaking for myself. And who exactly are they who are demanding of us to condemn Hamas? Let's be clear. These are the same people who look the other way when Israeli army, soldiers, kill unarmed journalists. They kill nurses, doctors, children. They're the people who remember international law, remember the United Nations and its charter. They remember the Geneva Convention on War Crimes only when the victims are Israeli. Somehow, it escapes their mind. All these things, UN Charter, international law, Geneva Convention, escapes from their mind when it's Palestinians. The people who are actually insisting that we should condemn Hamas are the very people who are outraged that women and children are victims and hostages. Well, I am outraged. But are they outraged that for years women and children are kept in Israeli prisons? Where was their outrage about them?
It is with a combination of heartbreak and outrage that I join with all of you here today. Heartbreak for the innocent mothers, babies, grandparents, partygoers, peace activists who suddenly and inexplicably lost their lives at the hands of an unprecedented terrorist attack, and outrage at the attackers. And so, in starting my remarks tonight, let me be explicitly clear. Hamas is not a militant organization. It is not an activist organization. It is surely not a government. It is a sadistic, demonic, genocidal, terrorist death cult, and it must be defeated and destroyed.
Right. They're the same people who support, and maybe if they're pressed, they will not say that they support it, but at least they tolerate. They tolerate the ritual humiliation to which West Bank Palestinians are treated every day, every night of their lives by an apartheid regime, much, much worse than anything that the Boers introduced in South Africa. And that is not something I say as a supporter of Palestine. This is admitted to by Tamir Pardo. Tamir Pardo is Mossad's former director. By Abraham Berg, a former speaker of the Israeli parliament. By Benny Morris, a renowned Israeli historian, and more than 2,000 Israeli public figures, some of them of US citizenship, who signed a public statement declaring that Palestinians live under a regime of apartheid.
以色列有建国的权利，巴勒斯坦同样有建国的权利。以色列人得到了生存的保障。以色列有建国的权利，巴勒斯坦同样有建国的权利。以色列人得到了生存的保障，巴勒斯坦人的生存谁来关心？以色列的民族已经不在世界上颠沛流离，巴勒斯坦民族何时才能重返家乡？这一问题的根源在于巴勒斯坦独立建国的夙愿迟迟未能实现，在于巴勒斯坦人民遭受的历史不公一直没有能够得到纠正。
которые в свое время обещали, что будет создано палестинское государство со столицей в Восточном Иерусалиме. Им же обещали. Решения были приняты на уровне ООН. Они вправе рассчитывать на исполнение этих обещаний. Вот все это надо совместить. Ну и, конечно, прежде всего подумать о людях, которые вообще не виноваты в сегодняшней эскалации.
The people who are insisting that we should condemn Hamas are the ones who turn a blind eye every single time murderous settlers rampage in Palestinian occupied territories, killing Palestinians at will. They are the same people who whistle in the wind while Israel's authorities illegally evict Palestinians from their East Jerusalem neighborhoods. Now, these people have lived there for generations. They throw them out, evict them, and they hand over their homes to people who just arrived for the first time in Israel on the basis of the right of the return for Jews, but not Palestinians. They're the same people who accept uncritically just now, Israel's declaration of war against Gaza, which, by the way, is not a state. They were never allowed to have a state. So it's a declaration of war not against a state, but against an occupied people whom the same army has been terrorizing and starving for decades. The same state which, when they announced that they will condemn 1 million children, because that's how many kids there are in Gaza, to live without electricity, without food, without water, constantly being bombarded. These same people who demand that we condemn Hamas, they think that is okay, that this is a legitimate action by the Israeli apartheid enforcers. Yes, comrades, friends, ladies and gentlemen who might be watching this, these same people who demand of us to condemn Hamas demand that the Gazan Palestinians lay down their arms and that they return quietly back into the world's largest open-air prison. To do what? To return to Gaza? To lead what? A life? No, you can't live in Gaza. Life in Gaza is impossible. What you can do is you can vegetate. You can exist somehow in Gaza. That was before this turn of the never-ending tragedy of the Palestinians in Gaza. So effectively, they want them to lay down their arms, stop causing trouble, and to die slowly under siege, surrounded by an ironclad army that for decades has been starving them, and they shoot at them like fish in a barrel. They practice their different weaponry. They try it out on them. I've been doing this for decades. No, we shall not be condemning Hamas, even though we consider what they've done to be atrocious. Even though I have no doubt that if I were in Gaza, I would probably be on the hit list as an atheist, as a feminist, as an opponent of fundamentalism, as a great supporter of the Jewish people's long struggle against anti-Semitism. I think I would be one of Hamas's targets, but I'm not going to be condemning Hamas, just like I would not condemn Ukrainians or Yemenis or Syrians who fight back when their homes are invaded by British armies, even if I disagree with them on many things, even if in the process of defending their lives, their territories, their villages, their neighborhoods, they do terrible things. So let's be abundantly clear on this. Nothing justifies deliberate killings, rapes, maiming, especially of non-combatants. Every loss of a human being, I'll repeat what I said before, every severed limb, even a small finger, tiny little finger, this little finger, being severed or being broken is a tragedy. And in this case, we, Europeans and Americans, who have been watching our respective governments support Israel's construction of the circumstances that inexorably lead to these crimes, and above all else, the grand crime of apartheid, we must consider ourselves. I consider myself to be responsible. I've done everything I could to support the Palestinian cause for decades. I have clearly not done enough. So let's be properly responsible, shall we? Let's embrace our responsibility to the Jews, to the Bedouins, to the Palestinians, to the Christians, the Muslims who live on that land. But what does that mean? What does it mean today, especially at this juncture, to take our responsibility seriously? Does it mean parroting yet another condemnation of Hamas, like that of our governments here in Europe, who did not even slap the wrist of the hand that has been strangling the Palestinian nation, thus bringing it to the brink of despair? Some say to me, but Yanis, with guns and with bombs, there will be no solution. Remember Yasser Arafat? who laid down his guns. Remember the PLO authorities that signed the Oslo treaties, hoping for a peace process? How did Israel treat them? Well, we know how they treated Arafat. We know how they humiliated Fatah, the Palestinian Authority. We know that, some of us have long memories, effectively they created Hamas, the Israeli state, when in the early 1970s. Read Ilan Pappé's fantastic book on this, on how Hamas in Gaza was, to a very large extent, sponsored by an Israeli state trying to create an antagonist to the PLO and to Yasser Arafat in particular, personally. So let's not have any of this. The Israeli apartheid state is determined to crush those who lay down their arms, and it is determined to crush those who do not lay down their arms. The apartheid state of Israel is all about fencing off, caging the Palestinians until either they die a slow death or they migrate. It's pure ethnic cleansing, occupation, apartheid. I close the bracket, the parenthesis. And I finish by reminding those who do not know that DiEM25, well, we've tried to respond to the question, what does it mean to be properly responsible in face of this tragedy? By means of a declaration. It started in Athens in May of 2021 with the Athens Declaration in response to Ukraine. Now we have a declaration updated, and I'll just read it out for you, and then I will stop. The declaration, which came out yesterday, reads as follows. The wars in and around Gaza, as well as in Ukraine, cannot be resolved militarily. There can be no military victory that will not spawn more war crimes, more suffering, more injustices against the weakest, the poorest, and therefore more wars. The governments of the world's leading powers, the United States of America, China, and the European Union, those governments are failing in their duty to set up a parallel peace process under the auspices of the United Nations for a just resolution of both wars. DiEM25 and our political parties called MERA25, extending our Athens Declaration, call upon the world's progressives to demand of our governments that this parallel peace process begins today with a cessation of hostilities as its first step. Any excuse to delay it constitutes a monumental service to the normalization of war crimes and the instrumentalization of inhumanity, which generates new hordes of refugees. Hearing the European Commission, the government of the United States, the governments of the members of the European Union, hearing them effectively endorse in advance a major assault on Gaza by the Israeli forces that have been terrorizing the people of Gaza for 25, 26, 30, 40 years now, brings us to the brink of despair. What is the end game? If the end game is to exterminate the people of Palestine, there is a logic to it, a cruel final solution logic. But if the end game is to end apartheid, that cannot happen by projecting the flag of Israel on the buildings of our governments.